Everybody gets excited about space. Space
Yes.
is fun.
Yes.
Space is the reason I started even engineering was space and seeing SpaceX as a kid and saying like, oh my gosh, there's a new era of engineering happening and it's happening in space. Don't underestimate the highs and lows of the journey. Like they are much more drastic as an entrepreneur than even in grad school, which was pretty intense, but yeah, the highs and lows can happen throughout the same day. When you think you're gonna be on the moon tomorrow and you're down in the dumps an hour later. So it's, you gotta learn how to ride those.
How do you ride those lows though? Because that's very important, because some people quit after those lows because they couldn't get it through. How do you ride those lows?
I think it levels out over time. So the first big L you take is gonna be like gut wrenching, and it was for us. Like I remember laying on the ground and just taking it and feeling it. And then reminding myself that I've heard this happens to everybody.
Yeah.
Like this is very par for the course.
Yes.
I am unstoppable. I am unstoppable. I am unstoppable. I am unstoppable. I don't have a limit.
I know you're probably wondering where we at today. We are in the West Bottoms in Kansas City. Today we are going to tour Raven Systems, a 3D printing company that has worked with NASA. They've raised over $1 million printing return capsules. So I'm geeking out today. I'm really excited to go see what they got going on. And hey, come with me, let's go do it.
Blueprint top of the class like an A+ student. Let's go. I am unstoppable.
Hey, what's up, Blake? How you doing?
So
Good to see you, good to see you.
man.
Man, where we at right now?
We're at Raven Space Systems, man. This is where we build all the advanced composite 3D printing tech for aerospace and defense applications.
Wow, aerospace here in Kansas City.
Yep.
That's a big deal. So give me a bit of a spiel. How long have you guys been in this location for?
So we've been here since the New Year's, thanks to Launch KC. They helped us out getting this place. They actually used to make steam engine tractors in this building. So now we're printing, 3D printing parts for spaceships, rocket motors, things like that. So big changes.
Wow, well, shout out to Launch KC. So tell me this, what is the importance of having your own space where you 3D print? What is the importance of having this to like test your product?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be able to build any technology without this space. So we have workshop space over here where we're developing the 3D printing technology, the materials that we're developing for the printing technology, printing parts and samples to get tested. So this workshop over here is key for us to prove out our technology while we have office space over there to type away on computers.
Okay, so I know that we're gonna take a tour, but before that, I wanna ask, where were you guys before Launch KC? Because I know a lot of, like I said, a lot of entrepreneurs are their very early stage. I don't know if they want to start because they don't have a big space like this. Talk to me about where you were at to get into here.
Yeah, so we were in I'd say a little bit smaller space, kind of building really small prototypes and just basic science. So now we're kind of reaching that point where we're actually printing samples and parts for customers and scaling up our technology in this facility. So yeah, a lot of progress in the past year or so.
Yeah, this is dope. So let's take a tour, because I haven't met Ryan yet. Is he here?
Yeah, Ryan's over there. Should be building something hopefully. So he's on the workshop side, doing his thing. There's
Beautiful.
Ryan.
What's up, Ryan? How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good to meet you. I have had a lot of chat with Blake, and kind of give me a little bit about spiel about kind of your position and kind of what you do.
Sure. So I'm the CTO and co-founder, and I work on kind of building everything you see here, building this next generation prototype for our printer and printing samples.
So put me through the process of printing. How many? Because I know it takes so long. How long does it take to print an aerospace equipment or an aerospace part?
So probably takes 2 to 3 hours to mix a batch of material, and then another hour or so to print it, and then we'll usually go and cut it out on the machines here, and that's how we make samples to test.
Sweet. So give me a little bit of a tour, because I see some things moving over there. Point out things, let me know what's going on.
So yeah, these are a couple 3D printers. They're making some parts that we're gonna put onto this next prototype.
Okay.
So we use these a lot to just quickly make parts either to use on the printers or just see how big they are in real life. It's really helpful.
Because I know you guys' technology is the print head, right?
Yeah.
So is the print head on these machines, or are they somewhere else? What are these machines right here?
So these are just commercially available printers that anyone can buy.
Okay.
And so we just use these to make parts that go onto our custom print heads.
Sweet. Okay, gotcha. Okay, okay. Sweet. What else are we looking at here? What's over here?
So over here we just got some more tools to build prototypes, and then we use these a lot to actually cut out samples so that we can go test them and see how strong they are and how well they do in like a torch, for instance, because a lot of our materials are heat shield materials.
Yeah,
so we gotta test them.
So have you ever been in a aerospace or space ship, or I don't even know? Have you ever been into one? Walking on the parts before, or what does that look like? I just want to, get me in the flow of things.
I haven't been in any spaceships.
Yeah.
Probably aircraft's the closest I've come.
I want to get in a spaceship. Y'all let me know if y'all, if y'all gonna invite me. I want to pull up.
Yeah.
But Ryan, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of a tour of kind of how this whole thing happens. How many hours you spend on a regular week working here, or printing out something, designing something?
In this space, I spend most of my time, probably 30%, or probably 30 hours a week or so in here.
Wow. This is dope. Yeah. Well, thank you, Ryan. Great to meet you. We're gonna go along. I saw some on your website. I saw some prototype you guys have. I want to go see that, and I think Blake knows where it's at. I'm gonna go find it so I can be able to see it in person. So thank you again.
Baby, don't make believe. I just make it look easy like ABC. I'm on it 24/7, 25/8. I just pick up the pace and I violate. I eat it all up like a dinner plate.
Shout out to Lunch Casey for sponsoring this episode. If you're an early stage tech startup looking to level up your business and get $50K in funding, go apply to lunchkc.org. What's up, good people? Welcome to Studio Entrepreneur Season 2. I am your host, Zeke Wanganga, and on this show, we bring entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things, creating amazing solutions to change the world. Hopefully, on this episode, we can inspire you to be able to start your entrepreneur journey, or inspire you to be able to take that shot or take that chance you've been thinking about for years and be able to start somewhere. Today, we are talking about a 3D printing company that received $1 million investment from NASA for their 3D print technology for return capsules. I know they always be saying, you're not in Kansas no more, but we in Kansas City, and NASA is coming to Kansas City for this company. So where you at, though? On this episode, we'll be talking with Blake Herren and hear about his journey to founding Raven Systems. What's up, Blake? How you doing?
Doing well.
Welcome
Thanks
to the
for
show.
having me.
Yes, it's an honor to have you here. How you doing today?
Doing great, man. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. It's not every day that you hear about NASA as investing in a company in Kansas City. $1 million to be precise.
Right.
Now, for those who don't know what Raven Systems is, can you explain to them what your company does when it comes to 3D printing?
Yeah, absolutely. So Raven Space Systems, our mission is to modernize composite manufacturing with our breakthrough 3D printing technology and Industry 4.0 solutions. Okay. So we invented a new 3D printing technology we call microwave assisted deposition, or MAD 3D printing, to reduce lead times, lower costs of flight critical components, and usher in a new era of composite manufacturing here in the U.S.
And for someone who doesn't understand 3D printing, someone like me, give us a more low-level explanation of how you 3D print, especially like return capsules, how the technology works on a very low level concept.
I can try. So we use what's called thermoset and ceramic composites. So materials that don't melt are really good at being heat shield materials for, say, reentry capsules or anything that goes fast, gets hot. So we use microwaves to, say, we're depositing a cookie dough through a nozzle and we're kind of dragging that along. We turn cookie dough into cookies during the printing process using microwaves. So that allows us to stack these materials and 3D print them.
That makes sense. I like cookies, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So tell me this, what is the problem that Raven Space Systems is solving in the industry?
So one example would be, say, these rocket nozzle insulation components. The lead times for these for solid rocket motors are 6+ months, and they're overpriced. So we can turn those parts around in probably days. So it's really about reducing lead times and lowering lowering the cost of parts and just speeding things up. Everything in this industry is about being as low cost and fast as possible.
So in that same perspective, I know that when it comes to space crafts, I bet these equipments are huge to print out. How do you guys print out, how do you do it? How do you print out 3D print it?
Yeah, so we're building a very big printer. So our technology is good for big things fast, so we're building a big printer. So this technology is entirely scalable because we're extruding from a nozzle. There's really, you just need a big vat of material, you need a big robot, and then you need our fancy 3D printing tech. And all those three things allows us to print really any shape, any size of these materials for the first time.
So question being, are you buying part, are you building that out or are you importing that? How are you building this huge machine to do how does that work?
Yeah, so we can just buy off the shelf equipment mostly and just piece it together. The key innovation for us is our print head.
Okay.
So there's some novelty there and patent pending technology that we're kind of adapting commercial off the shelf equipment to build the thing.
Sweet. So give me a little bit of kind of a journey of your story and research in terms of how you went from idea, problem, solution, and we are here today.
Yeah, so it's genuinely been like a 10-year journey from when I first saw my first 3D printer in high school.
Wow.
So that's when the intrigue was starting. And I realized the materials back then were just terrible. So I was fortunate to get a PhD position at the University of Oklahoma, which is where I started just diving into materials, 3D printing research, solving problems, just focused on the technology and materials side. And that, as well as just responding to SBIR opportunities, led to our MAD 3D printing innovation. So it was really to solve a technical problem, which is where Raven was born. And then since then, graduated about 3 years ago. And we've been trying to figure out the business side. And I think we finally have nailed down some customers and are looking to start selling parts here soon.
So walk me through that process of nailing down who the customer is or who this target audience is. Where did you start and how did you nail it down to who it actually is?
Yeah, it's not easy with 3D printing because there's so many different use cases. So really what helped was getting these first couple SBIRs from the Air Force and NASA to really focus our materials development on structures and heat shields. So that kind of narrowed the focus and the scope. And then looking for anything where those materials are applicable. So anything that gets hot, anything that needs to be lightweight and strong, primarily aerospace and defense things, that kind of led us down that path.
So did you, I guess my question is, because I know for me, sometimes my idea is I can be looking at a problem that has been probably like for hundreds of years or tens of years, decades, but no one has really said, how can I solve this problem? For example, right now, the show we're on, telling stories of entrepreneurs. It's like in KC, why are there no one telling stories of entrepreneurs when it comes to having them sit down and tell about who they are and follow them in that journey? For you, the idea of building 3D modeling space equipment, how did that come about? Through research in school, or how did that come about for you?
Yeah, so again, I think it just kind of started with building the 3D printing tech. So there was a very key obviousness of what materials can't be 3D printed when I was in grad school. That's materials that don't melt. Anything that can melt, you can 3D print and it's super easy. So there's a huge gap of things, thermoset and ceramic composites that don't melt. They require a lot of heat to go from a liquid to a solid, so it's really hard to manufacture. So identifying that as kind of really the core problem was the key. So like in grad school, you can publish papers all day long, mostly copying what's been done out there. So you really have to just think about, okay, what are we dealing with here? What am I working with? What is the end goal that really we're trying to get to that maybe others aren't thinking about because everybody's trying to publish, get by, and graduate. So that was... that's kind of how I started thinking about problems is like, don't just follow the crowd of research papers that, you can get into a better journal if you copy somebody else, surprisingly. But if you do something new, it's taking a leap and kind of believing in your own ideas. So that's kind of how I started thinking about problems in grad school.
I guess in that same line, because I know you talked about being able to work in a lab and from working in a lab and being able to start your own company. A lot of our listeners out there today are probably, working a job and they want to someday be able to either leave the job or start a company. What steps did you take from going from a lab to starting having a startup? What was that?
Right. Well, I think for me, it was always what I wanted to do when I graduated. I just didn't know how. So I had to figure that out. And I think really just grinding and figuring out what the hell to invent to solve a problem was, I basically dedicated my entire life to work in grad school. And I wouldn't recommend that necessarily, but to get something off the ground from nothing, you kind of have to have that mentality at some point. along the way. So I think just dedication to solving that problem you've identified is very key, especially early on. And yeah, I think it's difficult for me to say, quit your job and start a company because I didn't do that.
Yes.
Mine was different.
Exactly.
So it's tough for me to say how to transition from working in a job.
And I mean, I like that though, because like there's two different sides of it. There's one
Yeah.
side that says, I just want to leave my job and start something. There's one side that says, let me slowly learn about this other part of things.
Yeah.
Which is what you did, So there is two options. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Just wherever you fit in that, wherever your journey is, go through that path, right?
Yeah.
When you say you have to figure out how this works, is there some resources you use? What was that process for you? Did you read some books or mentorship, or how did you get to that point?
So less books, more journal papers, and mentorship is key. So in grad school, I had great mentors. My PhD advisor, Dr. Yingtao Liu, was absolutely key for me to give me a chance and just mentor me through this type of technology, as well as a business mentor for figuring out SBIR is Tom Wavering. Both of these people are at the University of Oklahoma.
Okay.
So those two mentors were crucial for me to learn research, to learn how to write proposals. So mentorship and then just committing your all to that.
Yeah. What made you rely or trust those mentors? What was it for you that made you choose them as people to talk to for this project?
Yeah, I think trust is a big thing. And just building a good relationship. So my advisor, I worked for him for a year in his lab during my undergrad. And so through that, just working with him directly, I was like, okay, this guy, I could work with another several years. And so there was trust built there. I think it's just picking and choosing who you're going to trust based on, sometimes it's not a whole year of work with somebody, sometimes it's just a few conversations.
True.
But I think people are generally pretty good at catching the vibe of somebody and seeing if you mesh well.
Exactly.
And so knowing kind of your gut feeling about those relationships is really key.
So then let's fast forward. You moved down to Kansas City. What made you make that move?
Yeah. So a little bit, I wanted to get out of Oklahoma. I'd been there my whole life. I wanted to see and experience something different. Me and my co-founder both had family up here.
Okay.
So Ryan, he's from Overland Park. I'd heard great things about Kansas City as a city. And there's also access to talent here, some 3D printing talent in our field.
Okay.
So it was kind of a mix of things that led us here. It's been great since we moved here.
When you say 3D printing talent in Kansas City, what do you mean by that? Like holistically, what
So our field of 3D printing is called direct ink write 3D printing.
Okay.
So there, I don't want to say who necessarily, but there is a talent pool of direct ink write 3D printing researchers here in Kansas City. So they're key to help us or recruit from to actually be able to build our MVP.
Makes sense.
Otherwise,
Okay.
we wouldn't get this technology off the ground.
Sweet. So in that same, apart from having, talent when it comes to 3D printing, what are other things that Casey helped you in terms of you guys building your company and being able to, kind of get in that target audience or figure out things out for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the support from the community has been great. Through Launch KC and Digital Sandbox, those were very key pieces of funding and mentorship and networking that has helped us transition from our first couple SBIRs to getting to the next ones that were bigger. So that was like a key bridge for us where things were getting tough for a little while, and those programs really helped us kind of survive and move on to the next stage of development.
Speaking of Digital Sandbox, going to Launch KC, what was that like being able to pitch a Digital Sandbox? What did you have to do? What was the thoughts you got from that, or what did you do to be able to pitch and win that? Because you won that. Like, what did you do to win that? For those who are watching, who want to be able to apply to Digital Sandbox today.
Yeah, I mean, the pitch, I've had a lot of pitches before that one, so practice pitching, pitch as many times as possible. So yeah, the first pitch I ever gave was at South by Southwest, and I completely bombed. So if
That's a huge crowd.
Yeah, if you practice and just do it over and over, it gets easier.
Okay.
So that was the key for me, just having experience in doing that. It wasn't my first rodeo. And yeah, the feedback was good. I think, again, just everybody gets excited about space. Space is fun.
Yes.
Space is the reason I started even engineering was space, and seeing SpaceX as a kid and saying like, oh my gosh, there's a new era of engineering happening, and it's happening in space.
So what did you learn from being able to pitch so many times that you switched, or something that wasn't working that you have to figure out that needed to be switched to be better?
Yeah, so the key for me was not trying to memorize or think about really much of anything, because you know what you need to say.
Exactly.
And just showing up and just letting it be a conversation when you're pitching is key for me. Like, especially when you know your vision. It's hard in school where it's like you kind of study, you cram right before, and then you have to give a presentation. You don't know the stuff. If it's your business, you live, eat, sleep, breathe it all day long, every day. You know it. Just trust that and just go and let it flow.
Now, going to Launch KC, shout out to the folks at Launch KC, Becca and Tommy. You guys are doing amazing work. What has that program been like for you, even to be able to apply and pitch that, be able to get into the program?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The pitch was fun, and everybody seemed excited and interested, so that's always a good time. Becca and Tommy have been great. They've been setting up meetings with people around the city or other connections, and one of the things they did was called Working Genius.
Okay.
So that has helped us really identify how me and my co-founder and now our new part-time hire kind of work in terms of what energizes them, what style of work do they prefer, and so we can really delegate tasks better and understand how each other are feeling. So yeah, Launch KC, that program, it's been really helpful for things like that.
Wow, I'm grateful that programs like Digital Sandbox, we can get a grant to be able to get started, and Launch KC exists to be able to mentor you and get you through the step-by-step process, because that's so key. And different programs exist in Kansas City. I think it's valuable that they exist, because I've seen founders grow from one stage to the next. If you see their first pitch, the first time you saw them, and with the next pitch you see them, it looks like a totally different person because of the amount of mentorship and training you have to go through to that. Now, switching gears a little bit, going a little bit deeper, you being able to be someone who has always wanted to build something or create something when it comes to 3D printing, and starting a company right now that actually 3D prints space materials.
Yeah.
More like a personal question. Who do you do this for? Who do you, or why? Why do you do this, and what is this for you?
I would say, why not? At the end of the day, like, we have one life to live.
Yes.
And as a kid, my dreams were, I'd say, smaller, but still big. Like, I remember one of my dreams was making one of the screws that goes on one of the spaceships that goes to Mars. Like, the idea that we could live in a time period where that was possible was exciting to me. So the reason I do this is to fulfill that excitement that I originally had, because this is all a game and you may as well play it.
True.
And so, yeah, I think it's just really following what excites me at the end of the day.
Why not? On that note, would you mind if we do a little bit of a segment where we cheers for the why not?
Sounds good.
Why not? You want to pop because it pops.
Oh.
It has a pop to it. Like I said, it has a pop to it. It does pop.
Is that on purpose?
Yes. It gives you the excitement of why not. And I'm glad you said that, because for me, it's always been, how can I be part of something that impacts other people's lives, right? It's like, for me, one of my biggest fears as a kid was public speaking.
Yeah.
Because I was a huge stutterer. I was a huge stammerer.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever gave a speech, it was back in, I think it was back in high school.
Yeah.
They do this every morning where every class has to bring someone up to be able to speak.
Yeah.
And that day was my turn. I went up there, I couldn't even say my name. I forgot everything I memorized. I was just shaking, and I couldn't say a word out. It was so embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I told myself that day that if there's one thing I have to learn in this life, is public speaking.
Right.
If there's one thing I accomplish in life, I want to do that. But I was so scared. And the reason also being because, I'm the last kid of my family.
Yeah.
And every time I want to say a word, they say, "Shut up, you're the kid. Just sit, don't say anything." Right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to have a voice, which is why we're here today, because I want to give other people the voice to be able to share their story.
At the top, that's 1, not 2 or 3. This real life, baby, don't make believe. I just make it look easy like ABC. I'm on it 24/7, 25/8. I just pick up the pace and I violate. I eat it all up like a dinner plate.
Sweet. So we are in the office space. And like I said, I told Ryan, I want to see the models you guys have online. I want to see it in person. So can you show me where
let's
they're
do
at?
it, man. They're right over here.
Bet.
So yeah, this is the office side where we type away on computers. We got Arturo working on the code for the robot we're building right now.
All right, so show me what's happening here. What is this?
So these are the samples that Ryan has been producing.
Okay.
So these are made out of high-strength heat shield materials called thermoset and ceramic composites. So we have little re-entry capsule prototypes. So that could potentially survive re-entry from space. It's a
This right here?
heat shield material, yeah, that we unlocked the 3D printing of for the first time.
Can they protect me from the sun? Because it's real hot outside. Sweet, okay. So what part is this? If this were to go into, what is this?
So this would be the entire re-entry aeroshell. So the heat shield and structure that goes around the capsule that protects it from the high heat during re-entry or hypersonic flight.
Yeah.
That's what this is, but it's a really small prototype.
I see,
So
okay.
we're scaling up the systems right now to build bigger ones. Something like this. This is the bigger example.
Okay. So I'm learning the whole thing as we go. So tell me this, you are trying to build a 3D printing machine that can be, like print the whole thing.
Potentially, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
huge. That's wow, okay.
Big things fast.
Woo! How much and how much investment does that need for that to happen?
So we're initially targeting a small amount, singles a million. So we really just need to prove our concept for near-term applications. So
Okay.
propulsion systems are something we're looking into.
Okay.
There are a lot smaller parts that they need, and we're starting with just printing parts that need to be rapidly produced at low cost, and we can do that with 3D printing.
Sweet. So, because I know we talked a little bit about this on the show, but how did you come down to saying, I'm not gonna, build the huge equipment right now, I'm gonna start somewhere? Why was that important to do that, and how did you get to that?
Yeah, you got to find your beachhead market, and that was kind of the key here. Something that's more near term doesn't require the capital that building an entire spaceship does. So yeah, finding those applications are key to get some early revenue, and then eventually in the long term build something massive.
Beautiful. And I know you say you guys had a contract with NASA, and that contract ended?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was fun. It was always a dream of mine to be a NASA contractor. So I remember in grad school when we won that was really exciting news.
Wow, okay.
So yeah, that was what got started for us to start building heat shield materials for our 3D printing process. So these samples over here were tested at really high temperatures. So this is like proven, tested heat shield materials made out of same heat shield materials used for flight-proven re-entry capsules. We're just 3D printing them for the first time.
So if I put this in flight, it won't burn?
Correct. Yeah, that could fall back from space and it'll survive.
Wow. So tell me this, if I'm not NASA, I'm not a huge space station, and I'm, a medium-sized company, and I'm trying to get some 3D printing, what is the plan for you guys to scale to be able to at least get some customers who are not like the big, can't afford like the big whole space?
Right. So propulsion systems, nozzles, something like this scale. So this would go, say, inside a rocket nozzle that also gets really hot.
Wow,
So
okay.
they use the same types of materials for thermal protection.
I see, okay.
And those parts are extremely expensive, long lead time. We just lower the cost and get it to them faster.
Wow, okay. So this will be a way to scale to be able to sell in smaller quantities, but also make profit while you're trying to scale to the big one.
Larger quantities of smaller items initially and then bigger things later.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, Blake, for giving them a tour. And I know the whole time we're talking to you, I'm like, I need to come just I can hold it myself. It's good. It's one thing to online, like, on your website is so cool. I'm like, I want to go and see it myself. So thank you for giving me a tour. Thank you for letting me, kind of, showcase what you got going on. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Zeke. Thanks for coming, man.
Most definitely.
I'm at the top, that's 1, not 2 or 3. This real life, baby, don't make believe. I just make it look easy like ABC. I'm on it 24.
Shout out to KC SourceLink for sponsoring this episode. If you're a business owner looking to find resources to grow your business, definitely go to kcsourcelink.org and get the info. So focusing more on the business side, right? Mm-hmm. How do you find your customers? Who are your customers? How do you define that?
Yeah, so I think for me, focusing on an industry originally was key, because again, you invent something that can print any of these great materials. They're great through different industries, but to not have a focused industry is really difficult in exploration. Mm-hmm. So for me, identifying what our materials, the ones we've developed so far, are best at. Mm-hmm. So high temperature applications, what gets hot? Re-entry, what else gets hot? Rocket nozzles or nose cones or things like that. So that to me, it's identifying what our technology does better than any other technology, and finding those applications that align with that.
I see.
Our customers are commercial companies that are building solid rocket motors or rocket nozzles or
Okay.
satellites in space.
Okay.
The DoD for hypersonic technology development.
Big dogs.
Eventually, yeah. That's the goal at least. So, yeah, it's a journey and it's a process. So you have to just keep going. And like after every call, it's mostly going to be misses. And then once you hit the 1 or 2 or 3 or more that are like, yes, we want this, we've been waiting for you, that's makes it all worth it. It makes it really exciting. It makes it, all the hard work feel like it's finally paying off.
Yeah. How does a startup company in Kansas City make it all the way to NASA and get $1 million from NASA? Tell me about that.
So I would say specifically, we probably only have, so we have $1.5 million, but it's kind of between the Air Force and NASA and NSF. Probably less from NASA than any of them, but to have that little logo is nice. And it feels good because my dream was always to work for NASA or be a contractor.
Exactly,
But who has the most money is the DoD, so we try to get contracts from them.
Makes sense.
But yeah, I think really the SBIR program is how we did it. So those are small business innovation research funds where NASA, the DoD, NSF, they release topics of things or solicitations, the problems they're having basically, and you can write proposals to answer those problems. So that's kind of how we got started, just writing proposals to answer those problems, and that led to our invention. So that's how we got those
How do you find this
contracts.
SBR? How do you get into that? How do you learn about that?
Yeah, so it was actually a program at the University of Oklahoma that's really new. It's called OK Catalyst, and that was ran by Tom Wavering, one of my mentors that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, they were absolutely key to get us off the ground.
Sweet. So just like you wanted to work with NASA, I also wanted to work with NASA, but this was way back in the day. I think I watched this movie. I told this story on this show 1,000 times, but it's always good to me. I don't care what people say. But I remember watching this movie. I can't remember the name, but the song that they sang in the movie was "I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'm going to be back again."
Right.
And basically, it was all these astronauts going out of space to go and do something to save the Earth, as you know, all the story goes. But essentially, after watching that movie, I was like, "Hey, I want to be an astronaut."
Yeah.
Then I went to mine and I was like, "Hey, Dad, I want to be mind you, I was still in Nigeria back then." And then I was like a kid. I was like, "Dad, I want to be an astronaut." It was like, "How are we going to do that? We don't even have a space station."
Yeah.
So I could have been an astronaut if only he believed in me. If only he believed in me.
Yeah.
But then let's talk a little bit about being able to raise funds, right? What has been your journey in raising funds, and how have you been so effective in being able to raise funds? What do you look at to make sure that this, you're going to get this? What makes you kind of assured of that?
Nothing makes you assured. It's a numbers game, and you got to put out as many proposals as you can because you don't win most of them, and you lose the ones you think you're going to win the most. Surprisingly, you think this is the best thing I've ever written. It's going to get funded. Nope, that one won't. And then the early ones or some random ones here and there, those will get funded. So you just have to keep pushing and identify the real problems that your solution is right for, and not work on ones that it's just not a right fit for to waste time. So it's a balance, and it's difficult. So you just have to keep going. So
give me a ballpark number. How many pitches have you given so far?
How many pitches?
Yes.
Let's see. Formal pitches are probably 150 at the least, I would say.
Wow, 150.
Roughly.
Wow.
Just in general, pitches here and there. Yeah, probably around that.
Wow. That's what it takes, because you gotta have able to keep adjusting the pitches, making sure you modernize, because the first pitch and your pitch now are totally different, right?
Yeah, completely different. Yeah.
So also on the business side as well, how does Raven Space Systems make money? How do you guys revenue? How does that work?
Yeah. So initially, I would say right now we're actually pre-revenue, but we will and are building a factory to sell parts.
Okay.
So we'll be lowering the cost and reducing lead times for very critical, expensive components for rockets, reentry capsules, So producing parts and selling those is the initial target.
Okay.
Eventually, we want to either sell printers or have factories deployed forward in supply chains. So the business model could adapt over time, but for now, just to get to market, selling parts.
Okay. So on that same entrepreneurship journey perspective for you, what is one thing you would say you wish you had known back when you were starting out that would have helped you so much more?
Anything about business, I'd say. Yeah, which isn't a joke. When I graduated, I knew nothing about business. I only knew about tech. So anything at all would have been helpful. But more realistically, I think don't underestimate the highs and lows of the journey. Like they are much more drastic as an entrepreneur than even in grad school, which was pretty intense. But yeah, the highs and lows can happen throughout the same day. Where you think you're going to be on the moon tomorrow and you're down in the dumps an hour later. So you got to learn how to ride those.
How do you ride those lows though? Because that's very important because some people quit after those lows because they couldn't get it through. How do you ride those lows?
I think it levels out over time. So the first big L you take is going to be like gut wrenching. And it was for us. Like I remember laying on the ground and just taking it and feeling it. And then reminding myself that I've heard this happens to everybody.
Yeah.
Like this is very par for the course.
Yes.
So it's to be expected. And then over time, I see it as kind of like a plot over time where it's like this. And then over time, it starts to level out and like become lesser. And that's just, it's an internal battle that just takes time. And I think you just have to, it's still going to hurt when you take an L, but you have to recognize it's temporary and that W's are going to be coming. So you just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's accurate just because I think for me, it was always been, I'm very impatient. I'm a very impatient human being. I would like things fast. Yeah. But it wasn't until I realized that you have to put some hours and times into this. If people are saying yes at first, that means you really have something. Like you have to hear those no's to know what's going wrong, right?
Right, exactly.
Like if you don't hear those, like there's no way you can be able to improve, right? Yeah. And it's those churn times. It's like I almost expect it to go wrong. I don't want to be pessimistic, but I almost expect it if it goes wrong, it just happens. It's just part of the process. I always say if it's not hard, it's not really worth it. Right. It's like
exactly. Yeah.
That's where you learn, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What has been those parts for you that you have been through the ringer and have able to bounce back?
Yeah, I would say mentioning our first L, that was when we didn't win a NASA Phase 2. So that would have been really great. In reality, I think it was maybe just not the right time for us, and it's all fine because it's going to work out, and it is working out. But when we took that first L, I mentioned I literally like laid on the ground. I was so heartbroken. It took days to recover. Kind of embarrassing maybe, but we like so expected to win to a fault, which you should, again, like you said,
exactly,
not expect to win anything. Just expect the worst and adapt and say, great, it worked. Awesome. Let's go.
Yes.
So don't expect anything.
Yeah. No, this might be a little bit of interesting story, but I think the first time I experienced like huge failure was like when I was a kid. I got the worst report card that I never, I got like a lot of bad grades. I think I was probably like 8 years old or 9 years old. Yeah. Or maybe 10. And then I came back home. I was told everyone this year I'm gonna get like the good grades and everything. And I went there, the grades were not good. Yeah. I came back, no one knew I came back. I went to the door and I locked myself in the door for like a whole day.
Right.
And in my head, what happened to me that day was saying to myself, regardless of what happens, I'm not going to let anything be able to define who I am. I'm not here to perform for some other person, just for myself. And ever since that day, I never performed for anyone else but myself, right?
Yeah.
Because if you keep doing that, you're going to keep performing because there's always something else you have to perform to show other people you have to be excellent at that thing.
Right.
Which, my parents didn't like that, but hey, it is what it is, right? Yeah. What are some things for you that you've had, you say, or insecurities that you've had in the past that actually turned out to be a strength of yours that you became proud of doing that?
I think it's public speaking and pitching, things like that. So I remember in school, I remember in a wind tunnel class where I had to give a presentation in front of like one professor and 6 students. And I was like so nervous because my knee was shaking. because I don't know the material that well, but I'm
Yes.
going to be grilled like I should know it like the back of my hand.
Yes.
So it's just nerve-wracking, and that habit of like my knees shaking during public speaking continued. And I think overcoming those fears just by pitching and getting in front of people and having meetings after meetings, like that has been the biggest growth for me, because I'm an introvert at heart. I
Yes.
loved being in the lab and just not talking to anybody and just playing with materials all day.
Yeah.
So the biggest growth for me has been just learning business development, pitch, communication skills, which are maybe more valuable than my technical skills at this point.
You probably wouldn't believe this, but I'm also an introvert. Like I
Yeah.
like to be by myself at home doing nothing. But do you think, talking about your knees buckling, do you think lack of preparation could be a result of like that?
No, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
and, yeah, for sure. But yes, yeah, 100%. Lack of preparation, not caring about what you're presenting about,
Yes.
all those things can contribute to that. It's also like a weird dynamic where it's your professor, so they have a higher level than you, so it's
Exactly.
a status thing.
Yes.
So yeah, I think just like reducing that mindset in terms of everybody's just human and
Exactly.
everybody has been where you've been, and recognizing that is very key in my opinion.
That is key. That is because like I think we convolute things so much that we think everyone has it figured out, and that's where we miss it. Once you know that no one has it figured out,
Yeah.
you understand that we are all trying to make it. Like I think I always say adulthood is a scam.
Yeah.
Just because when I was a kid, I was like, oh yeah, this adult's got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I have become the adult now. I don't have it
Right.
figured out.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
no one
yeah.
has it figured out. If you understand that at the core of yourself,
Yeah.
that alone gives you confidence to know that we are all trying to figure this out.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's like the people who I meet who have, I also pitched at Digital Sandbox, and two of the judges I actually know personally. I'm like, I've seen you guys, we've had conversations, so I
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
know you. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it was a pitch where something like I know you, right? It's
Yeah.
like, so it's being able to understand that everyone who's on the other side of your decision making are people who are trying to figure it out. Don't be too scared of the crowd, because they're also, man, when you went up there and spoke,
Yeah.
that was so inspiring to hear you say that.
Right.
But that's just my. I had an earlier episode where we were talking about being an entrepreneur, or a little bit of a narcissist. That's
Right.
my confidence coming out too much.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. So as we are going towards the end of the show, I kind of want to ask you to just go a little bit deeper in terms of how you find your target audience, in terms of how you find who your customer is, and kind of dig to it. What is that process for you, for someone who's watching?
Yeah, so it's been a long process for us. We originally targeted a customer base that wanted our solution, but it was just too long term to be realistic. So specifically, re-entry capsules are primarily used for moving people and cargo. We saw a bottleneck with the space station. There's only 2 returns of cargo a year, so researchers were saying we need more returns, we need more rapid returns. So we thought we can produce re-entry capsules faster and cheaper and alleviate that bottleneck and speed up microgravity research on the space station. So that was a need, and what we realized through considerable customer discovery and talking to investors is it's just too long term. It's going to require too much capital to build right now in this down market. So it was really probably unrealistic. It was a dream, whereas where we've pivoted to now, being a part supplier for rocket nozzles or satellites or drones, those more near-term things that we can prove here on Earth,
Okay.
that was a process. So we just kind of reanalyzed what our technology is, what our core technology is, and the benefits of that compared to anything else out there, and just continuing to talk to customers for really identifying, listing out the most realistic applications that you see, and going and talking to those customers immediately and saying, is this realistic? Do they want this? Does this solve a problem?
Okay.
So we are a little bit back to being, most 3D printing companies are this, but a solution looking for problems. So that was daunting, but it's seemingly going very well, actually, because our technology is so great and such a breakthrough that there are a lot of problems out there that it can solve.
So in that same context too, how do you do scalability? How do you scale this? Like, what is that looking like for you in terms of like as a business? How do you do that?
Yeah, so it's going to look like setting up a production line.
Okay.
You know, building a 3D printer and printing parts is great, but those parts need post-processed. They need machined a little, and you need to have quality inspection control. And really our vision of Raven is not just being 3D printing, but integrating everything into a smart factory or an Industry 4.0 solution where Internet of Things, everything's connected to the cloud. So you have all the data from all your automated machines uploading. So you can really operate super efficiently. That's been a key focus of ours. And very early on is to build the software to make a production line that it's the most efficient, low cost, just rapidly produce parts to solve these problems.
Is there a reason why you chose that manufacturing route in terms of having your own kind of a building where you produce and refine and make sure it's all to standard?
Yeah, so I think for us, having such deep technology, there's kind of no other option. Maybe we could license the technology, but we understand the potential value of it, and we're probably not there yet. There's interest. People want to buy our 3D printers now, but it just doesn't make sense to do that yet, mostly because it's an artisan process. This technology is not easy to use. We know how to use it best. We can develop the materials for it. We can develop the mixing for it. So for now, it just makes sense to sell parts, and there is big demand for buying parts. So it just, all those things kind of align to that business model.
So tying that a little bit back to Digital Sandbox, right? How or what was the most effective part of your pitch that you think kind of made you guys stand out?
I think, well, the space thing's cool, number one, but I think identifying how those funds will move the needle for us was key. So for us, it was identifying a component on our MVP 3D printer that would actually allow us to print parts and sell to customers. So really talking about that and identifying, hey, we need this. It's a small amount of money, but this really helps us now.
Sweet, okay. If you had a student or an individual who is either working in a job or in a lab or trying to transition into what they're doing to be an entrepreneur, what would you tell them in terms of steps to take in being able to go into that?
I would say start with the problem, number one. That's not what I did, I guess, technically in terms of the business sense. We started it solving a problem with the technical sense. So I would say if you have the experience in industry, look around and find those problems. I guarantee if you have a job, you identified problems already where something is inefficient, you wish you had this. Those kind of things are really how to start a startup. Doing the technical route, I think, is very difficult because you end up being a technical solution looking for a problem. I think we were lucky to get enough SBIRs to spend 3 years full time now finding those problems, but it's not always the case. It's really hard to go tech first, problem later, start with the problem in the industry and work back and develop the tech for that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Blake. Is there anything else I'm leaving on the table that we need to discuss before I go?
Oh boy, not that I can think of. You're pretty thorough.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an honor to kind of hear your journey, hear your story, and hopefully your insights that you share with us will be able to inspire someone out there who's trying to take the same journey. And hopefully they subscribe and like and share. But thank you so much for coming on the show, and wish you all the best and looking forward to all you do.
Thanks for having me, Zeke. Appreciate it.